Hey guys, it's me Elizabeth. Welcome back to another video. Today I'm just going to be simply talking about some overall general plans, ideas, and the different things that I have planned for my reading and books and that sort of thing for 2024. I don't really know what to call this. This kind of like a challenge slash other plans and ideas, things that I have for my reading in 2024. So firstly, we're just gonna dive right into this. I have a bunch of little things to talk about and then the big thing. So I'm gonna start off, I think, with the little small things, just some cool things that I want to implement into my TBRs and things like that, and let's just get into it. We'll talk about it because I figured I implemented some stuff into my TBR. Like when I do my TBR videos, I have some new TBR stuff I'm doing, and I figured I should do a little bit of a video explaining that, and I figured I would just attach it to my big video explaining the giant challenge that I'm doing, because it's only like a couple small things to talk about. So let's just get right on into it and discuss all the different things. First, we're just gonna quickly talk about my TBR stuff. First, every month I'm gonna be unwrapping a book that I wrapped in newspaper, and that's going on that month's TBR. And my plan, some of these books that I wrapped are books that I'm dying to read, although I don't remember what any of the books I wrapped are, except for like maybe one or two, because I suck. But there's a couple books in the 16 books that I wrapped that I'm dying to read. I will mention 2 of them have already been unwrapped, so there's technically 14. But most of these books are books that are on the lower end of my TBR pile, so they're not books that I'm absolutely dying to read. I did put a couple of books I'm dying to read because I knew that I needed to like have the incentive to actually open these. But basically my plan is every month I have to pick one of these, unwrap it, and that's a book that I have to read that month. And if I read it that month, great. If I don't read it that month, I have to get rid of it. It's getting kicked out. I have to get rid of it. So I have to either read it or get rid of it, which is incentive. I feel like that should be incentive enough for me to actually read the book. And if I don't, it's going. So either way, it's getting off of my TBR. If I read it or I don't read it or I DNF it, it's going off the TBR. Works. If I happen to DNF a book, my plan is that I'm going to pick another book. Eventually, if I DNF a book, my plan is to wrap another book and possibly pick another book for that month to read to replace the DNF book. We'll see. We'll see how much reading I can actually get done. We'll see how much of this actually succeeds, but that is the plan. I have, like I said, 14 of these are wrapped because I already opened 2 of them. One I opened in December for December book, and I didn't read it, and I just decided that I'm never going to, and decided to get rid of it. The other one I've unwrapped for my January TBR, and it's on my January TBR. I actually started reading it. We'll see if I DNF it or if I keep reading it. Next little thing that I have going for me is I actually made myself these really awesome cards, and they're themed around Charles Dickens because he's my favorite classic author, and it is my goal to read every single one of his books that he's ever written. And so I came up with this idea, this sort of game idea, and I designed these cards to look like Penguin Classics covers. So the back of the cards look like a Penguin Classics cover sort of situation, the kind that look like this, and then the front of the card looks like a different Penguin Classics cover, but similar, and it looks like this. And we just have Charles Dickens' face. We have the character name. I just chose random character names for this, and then whatever the prompt is. And then the middle here says Dickens Challenge, and then the middle of the back says Soli Libri Studios. It's just something I came up with. It's Latin for books alone. And then, okay, so the card will have a prompt and a character name. So this one is Arthur Canham. Read a book, then watch the movie / show. This is actually the card that got chosen for the month of January. But the point of this little challenge / card deck is that I'm going to pick one of these, probably not every month. Every time I finish a Dickens book, I will pick another one of these, basically. So my current Dickens book is actually David Copperfield, which is technically a reread, but I listened to the audio dramatization and I wanted to read it physically and annotate it, so I actually started that in December. And so when these cards came and I decided I was going to read something Dickens, I decided to just continue David Copperfield because I didn't get very far and I want to make that a legitimate thing. The last TBR thing here, I'm doing the Read Your Shelf challenge that Chantel Reads All Day put out. She's a booktuber, and basically this Read Your Shelf challenge is themed after Ella Montgomery and Arthur Conan Doyle, both classic authors. Ella Montgomery wrote Anne of Green Gables. Arthur Conan Doyle wrote Sherlock Holmes, if you didn't know that already. And basically she has different prompts, and every month there's one prompt that follows each author, and you have to read a book based off of that prompt. I chose to follow Ella Montgomery because, again, if you didn't already know this, she's my second favorite classic author of all time. And the way it works is once you pick a side, you stay on that side for the whole year, and there is one part in her challenge where you can switch sides, but you basically stay with the same author and use their prompts the whole year. And so for the first prompt in that one, it's, if you're Ella Montgomery, it's to read a book with a cat on the cover, or if you're Arthur Conan Doyle, it's to read a book with a dog on the cover. So I still haven't picked a book for that because you would think with me hating cats that I don't have a book with a cat on the cover, and I don't really. So my entire goal this year is to read mostly entirely books that are on my TBR shelves, books that I own physically. There may be a few exceptions. I do have an audiobook subscription, so there may be a few exceptions where I get an audiobook of a book I'm dying to read that I don't own physically. I may read a few books that are on my parents' shelves, but for the most part, I want to read books that are on my shelves that I haven't read. And I'm also giving myself a goal. I'm going to set myself a little bit of a challenge that I can't reread a bunch of books. I have to not that I've been rereading tons of books all the time, but I'm challenging myself not to just reread books. I am giving myself I can't reread tons of books. I don't know how to explain this is the word I'm looking for. Basically, there's an exception to the rereading, because if you don't know already, this past year, 2023, I started rereading the Harry Potter books and annotating them. So I am going to continue doing that. I'm still in the middle of book 4, even though I started that way back in October. I just haven't been reading it. But I'm going to continue the Harry Potter reread, even though it's one of the books I should probably not reread the most because I've read it 11 times, but I'm doing that as an annotation reread, and that's an exception. And I'm gonna give myself maybe 1 or 2, maybe even 3 rereads, not including Harry Potter. But I can't reread any more books besides 2 or 3. One more little thing I want to mention, or actually there's a couple things I want to mention. I'll mention something else at the end after I mention the big thing. But one more small thing I want to mention is, well, it's not a small thing, I guess, but the smaller thing, I guess, is that I'm challenging myself the same as I did last year and failed, but I'm challenging myself this year to read every single day. So what happened was last year, the Storygraph, which is where I put all my books, and I use the Storygraph, I don't use Goodreads, did a challenge where it was called the Read Your Pages Challenge or something like that, and you have to read at least 1 page or 1 minute of an audiobook every day for the month of January. I decided I'm going to do that, and I did it. I read every single day in January. And then after, like, at the end of January, I decided I'm going to continue this and try to do this all year. I did it in February, March, April. I think I did it in May. I think I went all the way up to, like, either May or June or something like that. And then I kind of started going downhill and not doing it. And then I just kind of, like, stopped, like, keeping track of whether I read every day. I still read a lot and still read most days, but I didn't actually read every single day, you know. But I did legitimately try, and I did it for, like, quite a few months, which is actually impressive. But this year, I'm legitimately going to do it. And yes, there were some days where I could only read 1 page or 1 minute because I was busy and I had other stuff. But this year, I'm going to do that as well. I'm going to legitimately try this year to read at least 1 page or 1 minute of an audiobook every single day. Now let's get into the big giant challenge that I have for this year. Basically, the overarching challenge for me this year involves not just reading but everything. It is to spend zero money. Basically, there's this thing called the no buy challenge. It's not going to be exactly I don't buy anything ever, because sometimes, you know, I have specific, mostly I'm just not going to try to buy much of anything. Specifically, I'll get into the bookish part in a second, but basically, things that I can buy are things like hair products or anything to do with hygiene or anything like that, anything related to that. Only when I need it, only when it needs refills, not all of the time, only when it gets empty and it needs a refill. Like, only when I absolutely need something am I going to buy something, basically. And I can't buy needless stuff. But the exception to buying stuff is I can buy different fabrics and notions and things for when I'm working on a specific project and I need stuff to make something within, because I do sewing as my other hobby. I will allow myself to purchase the things, but only if it's for a specific project that I'm working on. Getting into the bigger part of this, the main and biggest goal that I have with this not buying stuff challenge, and there is the exception that I can buy gifts for people for, like, birthdays and Christmas and all of that. That's another exception. But that, again, is only absolutely when it's absolutely necessary. If it's somebody's birthday, like, I can't just go out and randomly get someone a gift randomly for no reason at all. You know, there's that. But the biggest challenge and the thing that kind of sparked this thing in general is I can't buy books in the year of 2024. I'm going on a book buying ban, not for a day, not for a month, not for a couple months, but for the full 12 months of 2024. January all the way to December. There's one exception. There will be one exception. Actually, there's two exceptions. There's two exceptions, but I cannot buy a single book. Mainly, I don't want to add more books to my TBR because I already own so many books. And my goal with this is to read the books I own and to stop buying more books. It's insane. There is going to be a couple of exceptions. Firstly, I will probably end up buying / pre-ordering Brandon Sanderson's 5th book in the Stormlight Archive because it's coming out in December, so it wouldn't get here until December anyways, so it would be fine, essentially. And, like, I can't not buy that book. If you don't know, Stormlight is my 3rd favorite book series of all time. So, I have to, like, continue, right? And then, the other caveat, well, obviously, something else that I didn't think about was, I have an audio subscription to Libro FM, so if I get books on there that aren't on my physical TBR, there's that. But then also, might be getting a book every month from Broken Binding. We'll see. I know I'm getting one in January because there's, like, they have this subscription, and basically you can't just, like, subscribe. You have to sign up for their email, and when they have an available spot, they will email you. And it's kind of hard to get in there. And I got in there, and I was like, okay, so I accepted because I was like, this is kind of hard to get in, or it seems like it was kind of hard to get in, I don't know. And I absolutely love the books that the Broken Binding does. Not only do they do really cool editions of books, like sprayed edges, signed book plates, it's super cool, but they also do fantasy, and they do like high fantasy, adult fantasy, that type of thing, and it's just right down my alley. So we'll see. I know I'm at least getting a book in January. We'll see if I continue with it or whatever. But even so, I'm still focusing on the books on my immediate TBR, and I'm trying not to buy a single book. Even if I already read the book, even if I, I don't know, I'm just going to focus on the books I own as much as possible, and I'm not going to buy books this year. We're going on the book buying ban, and we'll just see how that goes. Hopefully I can continue it because, I've been acquiring books like crazy in the month of December because I knew that I was doing this, and I was like, I need this book so I can read it, and I need that book so I can read it, and that book, and it's insane. Also, I bought a bunch of Joe Abercrombie books thinking I need these so that I can continue with Joe Abercrombie's books because I'm dying to read a Joe Abercrombie book. And you know what I did? I didn't buy the one that I'm supposed to read next. I didn't buy Best Served Cold. And that's the next one that I have to read. I'm going to read them in the order that's supposed to be read, and I can't continue reading Joe Abercrombie now because I don't have Best Served Cold. And I can't buy it now because it's January 1st, so I'm probably going to be asking for that one for my birthday, which is in February, so it's kind of coming up. So the caveat to me not buying books is, another thing I guess to mention is that if it's my birthday or Christmas and I want to ask for a book, I'm gonna ask for a book. But I think, at least from what I can picture in my brain, when my birthday comes around, I already have some ideas, and like I just said, I might ask for Best of Cold because I need to read that book. I need it. And then if I ask for any other books, it'll probably be the rest of the Red Rising books, and I've read most of those already, so that's not going to be really adding to my TBR. That's the goal. I want to read my shelf, so I'm not buying any more books this year. And hopefully when I do the newspaper thing, if I don't read books or I DNF them or whatever, then I get rid of them. That's also getting books off of my TBR. My little thing, my challenge within the challenge, or that's not a challenge, but my little thing that I'm going to do as a reward for my challenge for the end of this year, we'll see if this pans out. If it ends up stacking up really high, I might have to stop at some point. But basically, I'm going to give myself $1 for every book I finish, and $2 for every TBR video, every book that I set for my TBR that, I completely finish. If I had set myself my January TBR, if I completely finish every single book on my January TBR, I will give myself $2 extra. And then at the end of the year, I will add up all of that. Hopefully it won't be too much, because sometimes I can read a lot, and sometimes I don't read hardly anything at all. So we'll see if that adds up to a lot. Maybe that'll be way too much money, and maybe I'll have to thin that down to only half of whatever the money is. We'll see how much that ends up adding up to, because the whole point of this year is that I want to read a lot more books and read all the books in my TBR. So if I actually follow through, then I'll probably be reading a lot more books, and so it might really add up. But if I fail, then it won't add up, so we'll see. But currently, until I decide that this is way too high, it's going to be $1 per book I finish, and that's just any book I finish, and then $2 extra if I finish my entire month's TBR, the books that I set for myself for that month. So it's incentive to get me to read books / finish my TBRs that I set myself. We'll see if it works. We'll see what happens. But that is my goal, my plans for reading in 2024, excuse you. I do have some issues as well, because there's some different ideas I have for some video ideas, and it's hard to do. I really would love to do reading some sci-fi books for a week video, but that's kind of hard to do when I don't own First off, I don't really own a ton of sci-fi, and I don't own the sci-fi that I specifically want to read. I have lots of ideas and plans, and I want to be more specific with my videos this year. I want to be more, like, I feel like for the past however long since I've been doing this, I guess since technically 2016, but I really started focusing on this in 2019. Ever since then, every time, like, I have a video idea or something I want to film, I just get up and I film it. And so, literally, you don't even know the scope of how many videos I have filmed and how many videos and clips and stuff just get deleted because I don't edit it, because I film so much. It's insane. So this year I'm gonna try to be really intentional with actually planning, because I barely ever plan for videos or do things ahead of time, or all of that. So I'm gonna be really intentional with planning, like, oh, I have this video idea, I need to write this down, plan it out, and film it sometime in the future, and not right this split second and not ever get it uploaded or edited. So I need to really plan and really need to make my channel better, hopefully. But these are my plans, my thoughts, my ideas for 2024. It's crazy to think that it is currently 2024. Like, what? That's my plan. That's my little situation. I'm gonna be going on the book buying ban, have some TBR changes. Also, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I'm gonna continue doing the Harry TBR tour. I'm just implementing those other TBR things along with it. So I'll just be doing less books in the Harry TBR tour. Unless I get myself reading more and more and more books. I might, up that if I feel like I can. But I'm just going to lessen the books that I do in the Harry TBR tour and just add those extra TBR things, like the Read Yourself Challenge and the newspaper wrapped books. So yeah, that is it. I'm sorry for the long video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, feel free to like, subscribe, comment down below, and all of that. And if you're into history, historical, fashion, or science, check my other channel linked below. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.